This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network from Comerica Park for Victor Martinez's final game as a big leaguer is brought to you by The Athletic. And The Athletic Detroit specifically is premium coverage for hugely passionate Detroit sports fans. And listeners of this special edition of the DSP Network can get 30% off the first year of an annual subscription to The Athletic by visiting today, theathletic.com/DSP. And welcome to this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network from Comerica Park. I am your host, Vito. And on this special edition of the DSP Network, I have the chance to talk with both Matthew Boyd, the left-handed starting arm for the Detroit Tigers, and then also Anthony Fenech of the Detroit Free Press. And coming up first is Matthew Boyd talking about Victor Martinez and what he meant to the Tigers organization, all of that and more for Matthew Boyd right now. So, Matt, what will you remember about Victor Martinez and the impact that he had on the Detroit Tigers?
His presence. He's always been an awesome clubhouse leader. He was the guy that, when I got traded over in 15, came into the clubhouse, was one of the first guys to come over and welcome me and, make me feel part of the team. When I had rough outings in those first few years, he was always the guy, whenever. He's always the guy to, come up to you and explain to you, what happened and know that it's temporary. He's a pro's pro. He's one of the best to ever play this game on the field, but he's also been awesome on the clubhouse.
So really quick, how do you think he made this organization better, and better for the long term as well?
Well, he may not be on the field when we're going to be fighting for the World Series and winning Central Division titles in the coming years, but his presence and his impact on everyone in that clubhouse right now will be felt because of just who he was as a person, who he was as a player, how he prepared. He led by example. He was vocal when he needed to be, and, he was just a true leader to a lot of guys.
Matt, thanks for all the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
And thanks to Matthew Boyd for the time he lent to me regarding Victor Martinez and the career he had with the Tigers, the impact he had on the Tigers organization, and also what he will mean to the Tigers in the long-term future. And now to my chat with Tigers beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, Anthony Fenech. Anthony Fenech of the Detroit Free Press, thanks for joining me for this segment here about Victor Martinez and his final days and final games specifically. And what did he mean, do you think, Anthony, to the Detroit Tigers organization and to Major League Baseball as well as a whole?
I just think he was a very influential player because, look, in terms of switch hitting, and remember, he came up with the Indians as a catcher, and he was a pretty good catcher, too, before, he got bigger and they had to move him off over to first base. I just think that the thing that stands out to me about Victor is the way that he would take every single at-bat like it was bottom of the ninth, Game 7 of the World Series. This guy just never gave away an at-bat. And I think it shows in his career stats. And we just saw, we had the privilege to see his final hit, 2,153 infield single. What about that? I mean, how Victor Martinez having an infield single there to end his career. He walked off the field, standing ovation. But look, there's only 3 switch hitters in the expansion era with average over 290, OPS over 800. Chipper Jones, Victor Martinez, and Bernie Williams. That's some pretty elite company. Not a Hall of Famer, but he's in that Hall of very good. I mean, what a career for Victor.
Well, terrific class to be associated with, as you said. And now, how about his lasting impact on the Tigers? What would you say that is?
The lasting impact on the Tigers has yet to be determined, because I think that he's been very influential on some of the young guys here this season. I think this season gave him a good opportunity to step back into a leadership role, especially once Miguel Cabrera went down. It was his clubhouse, and it was very obvious from June on the effect that he had on some of the Tigers players, especially guys like Victor Reyes, Jeimer Candelario, guys like that. The young Latin players, Victor really had an impact on. And I think there was maybe a month and a half ago, the days are long since started running together. But Victor keyed a team meeting and kind of told these guys what's expected of you at the major league level, and he imparted his wisdom on them. So I think years from now we will see many young players, and you saw one of them today, Salvador Perez. He grew up in Venezuela, idolizing Victor, and I think we will hear a lot of young players years from now say that Victor Martinez really helped them in their career and taught them really how to become a professional.
And really, Vimar, always a consummate pro, definitely. The Tigers showered him with gifts. His family and friends were there for the pregame ceremony. It was great to see what they did for him. and Tigers fans definitely showed some love as well. And how much do you think the Tigers faithful loved Vimar throughout his Tigers tenure?
I think they loved him, and I think they saw what I said at the top here in terms of the way that he never gave up an at-bat. They saw his intensity. I mean, I believe it was 2012 or 2013. Let's go with 13. He kind of changed that series against the A's when he started that little kerfluffle with Grant Balfour in I believe it was Game 2. He really set a tone with that series that we're not backing down. A year later against the Orioles, the Tigers were trying to come back, and you could just feed off of his energy. He was a guy that really embraced the moment. He hit well in the postseason. He had a lot of big home runs for the Tigers. And, I look back and I wonder, when they signed Prince Fielder, it was because Victor got hurt that year. He blew out his knee, and you wonder maybe what that Tigers team could have been with him, because at that point he was 6-7 years younger. He carried more of a leadership presence than in past years. This year he was definitely the Tigers' foremost leader. I think Tigers fans loved him because he kind of embodies what Detroit is a little bit in terms of the work ethic, and I haven't seen, but you should hear what he does between his at bats. It's just a constant grind and in preparation, and like you said, he's a consummate professional in that regard.
8 years with the Tigers, and counting 2012, which he missed all of. But 2014 sticks out to me and to many fans and pundits alike the most because of how great it was. At 35 years old, however you slice it, .335 batting average, 32 home runs, 70 walks, only 42 strikeouts, terrific OBP. I think he led the league in OBP, runner-up for AL MVP, and that season really sticks out to me, Anthony. Describe how great that season was from Vimar.
What sticks out to me is what you just said, 32 home runs, 42 strikeouts. That's just, in this day and age of baseball, that's just mind-blowing. I think I saw a statistic from Brian Ford of the Free Press that said, he's one of 4 players that over 35 years old that hit 300 with 30 doubles and 30 home runs, and the other 3 are Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, and Manny Ramirez. I mean, anytime you're in that kind of company, but I mean, and that was a season that really made this kind of farewell possible for him, because that's what got him the 4-year, $68 million contract, which, look, Tigers knew that at the end of it was going to be a little bit difficult, because Victor was going to be 37 years old, and it was going to be tough for him to keep hitting the way that he was. And we saw him start slowing down in 15 and then 16 and then this season. But you know what, even this season, I go back a couple weeks, I was sitting around with an advanced scout from a National League team, and he was looking at his reports, and he still regarded Victor as the most dangerous hitter in the Tigers lineup, not because of power, but because of his professionalism and the way that he attacked every single at bat. This Tigers team by and large has overperformed this season, and I think that for as bad as the offense has been, imagine it without the everyday at-bats of Victor Martinez. But yeah, that was a season that the likes we might not ever see before again from a switch hitter at that age, and especially with the walks to strikeouts. And then there was this streak. It was, I wouldn't be doing it justice, but I don't know, 700 at-bats, 300 at-bats, something. Someone will look it up, where he didn't strike out looking, and that just shows his incredible eye at the plate and his incredible feel for hitting.
And thanks once again to both Matthew Boyd and Anthony Fenech for all the time they spent on this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network on the scene from Comerica Park for Victor Martinez's last game as a major leaguer. He spent 8 seasons when you count the 2012 campaign in Motown. In 2012, he missed all of that season. And from 2011 to 2016, he had a heck of a run with the Detroit Tigers as he averaged 19 home runs and 88 ribbies. And also in 2014, remember, it was his finest season with the Tigers, one of his finest seasons of his big league career, as he smashed 32 home runs, hit .335, recorded a .974 on base plus slugging percentage, was runner-up for the American League MVP award as well, and walked 70 times and struck out only 42 times. So incredible numbers from Victor Martinez in that 2014 campaign, and a season that I will always remember from Victor Martinez donning the Old English D. And that is all she wrote for this special edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Vito Jerome Churko, signing off. Adios.